In the course of the week, we got the chance to speak to World Athletics President, Lord Sebastien Coe. He's served his full term as the World Athletics President, but he's going for a new role. That is the International Olympics Committee President. Will he be able to succeed? What are his plans? What is his vision for the sport? And what does he have in store for Africa? Take a listen to that engagement. We are glad you're still there. Of course, as earlier promised, this is the quick fire segment. And today we have the distinct honor and pleasure of talking to none other than Lord Sebastien Coe, who is the World Athletics President and is one of the 7 candidates running to be the next International Olympics Committee President. Of course, the elections are set for March, that is next month, in Monaco, France, and basically he's gonna share his insights. Lord Sebastien, what a pleasure having you on board. How are you today? And probably tell us your vision for the IOC. Why do you want to be the president, and why do you think you're the right man for this job?
Well, it's my pleasure entirely too, and thank you for including me in on your great program. Well, I wake up every morning enjoying my role at World Athletics, and why wouldn't I? It's a hugely important sport. I really don't need to say that on this program, of all programs, given that athletics in Kenya it's not just a national sport, it's a religion. And that's a good place for our sport to be. Why me? Well, I feel that I have a lot to contribute. In a way, you know, I feel I've also been in training for this most of my life, or certainly since the age of 11 when I put on my first pair of running shoes. And of course, interestingly, throughout my career, particularly my Olympic career and the world records, Kenyan athletics and Kenyan athletes have figured big and powerfully in my own career. Some of the toughest races that I've had have been against the likes of the great legendary Mike Boyd and Paul Ereng and Nixon Kiprotich. All these athletes have been significant athletes in my career and have really created in large part the legacy that is so strong in Kenyan athletics.
Gender equality actually is a growing global focus. How do you think probably African athletes can further promote equal opportunities for women in sports, both on the field and, of course, also the leadership roles, and tie this with your vision for Africa and Kenyan athletes?
Look, Africa has the potential to grow the Olympic movement, to grow athletics as well. We know that. Probably a greater potential than anywhere else in the world. You have a population that really does understand and love Olympic sport, obviously, and particularly athletics. And I can talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. But also, you recognize, so many countries in Africa recognize, I know Kenya certainly does, given many conversations I've had with your political leadership in Kenya, that a really good sports policy is probably the best economic, health, social, education policy you will ever have. And making sure that we have communities that are fit and healthy, and young people that are physically and mentally in good shape. This is a very, very important part of the agenda. One of my ambitions, not just for Africa, but throughout the world, is that we raise sport higher on the government agenda. And our programs like Kids Athletics that engage thousands of young athletes, young people, throughout the course of the year, is a very good example of how we can impact, not just on finding the next Faith Kipyegon, but also in encouraging more young people to choose sport as a way of life, and to choose health and fitness as a habit for life. And this is very, very important. So that is why I believe the Olympic movement can make a huge difference here. Can it do more? I actually believe it can. And I also know through my years at World Athletics that when we talk about development, there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. Africa is a complicated and hugely large continent. It also has the potential, as I've said, to grow our sport and the health agenda. And so this is something that we really can make a huge difference with. And I know that the element of making sure our development programs are tailored not just to a continent, but the specific and very clear needs within that continent. I know, for instance, that Kenya has very different needs than Morocco. Morocco, very different needs from South Africa. South Africa, very different needs from those countries in the center of your continent. And this is something I've understood at World Athletics.
Talking of African athletes, of course, Faith Kipyegon, as you rightfully mentioned, is one of the big names regarding athletics. And of course, she's also won medals in the Olympics. But there is a concern. How best can African athletes actually and the sporting organization be better supported by international sports organizations? How can these athletes tap into this and get the better end of the stick? There is a feeling that our athletes have gotten the shorter end of the stick. What would you do about this, and what's your response?
I rather define my proposals for Africa as African accelerators, because the real objective here is to get things moving quicker and to get things moving more meaningfully. And I don't mean just academically. I don't mean a desktop analysis. I actually mean where resources get to the places that there is the highest, greatest need. And clearly, you won't be surprised when I say this. I wake up every morning trying to figure out how I can make the experience, the career, the long-term physical and mental and financial well-being of the athletes my number one concern. And it is very important that when we have global sponsors, when we have top sponsors in the International Olympic Committee, when we have our own sponsors in World Athletics, that we do everything to persuade them that the health and vibrancy of our sport is in large part the health and vibrancy of those initiatives that are taking place in individual countries, whether it's about coaches, whether it's about getting more young people into our sport, whether it's about encouraging more women into positions of seniority, getting more coaches that are female. These are really important. Actually, World Athletics has made very good progress in the last year. 40% of all our referees and very nearly the same percentage of new coaches certified through World Athletics are women, and that's a huge step forward. So all these things are really important, and we need to make sure that our global partners are activating in a way that opens and helps them develop new markets, and by implication helps us expand our presence in those countries, and making sure that the athletes benefit from those sponsorships, whether it's Olympic solidarity, that funding that is so vital to our national Olympic committees, but also making sure that that funding gets through to the development of our athletes, because they are the ones that are ultimately responsible for our ability to go to the market, our ability to find new partners and sponsors and suppliers.
Absolutely. I believe that's one of your key pillars, even as you vie for this position. Lord, still sticking to the same line, African voices are not really strongly represented within the IOC, and that's a major concern. And I know you guys are out there campaigning, trying to win the votes. Or what would you do rather? What would you do rather if you are elected president to ensure that African voices are strongly represented and well heard within the Olympics body?